Hi, I'm Nikhil, and this is Zero Latitude. Two of the biggest AI labs, Anthropic and OpenAI, dropped their usage reports. Together, they give us the closest picture yet of how people are really working with frontier AI. So, this isn't about potential, this is about what's already happening. Who is using these models? What are they doing with it? And what they mean for work and economy. So first, let's talk about scale. ChatGPT has 700 million users per week, and that was in July of 2025. And they're processing about 2.6 billion messages daily. That's about 1 in every 10 adults on the planet. Historically, electricity took about 20 years to reach most of the US homes. Internet took 5 years. But this Gen AI hit comparable penetration in just 2 years. So, adoption speed is directly related to economic shocks, productivity gains, job shifts, inequality, and they are all going to arrive in a very compressed time frame. So, this is not just an application cycle. This is infrastructure adoption even on a larger scale than internet and electricity, and arriving faster than both waves. So who's using it? Anthropic define a term called AUI, Anthropic's AI Usage Index, which is basically per capita usage versus expected population baseline. So Israel has 7x, Singapore has 4.6x, and US has 3.6x. But the lower and middle economies like India and Nigeria are only at 0.27x and 0.2x respectively. So the usage intensity tracks income. Richer countries are adopting more and faster. OpenAI also reports that their fastest growth is in low and middle economies, and especially with younger users. So that does not mean that they have higher numbers in those economies because they do not report those numbers. It actually makes sense that they would have lower number of usage as well, because that will basically make sure that the growth is steeper, because it's always higher percentage from low numbers, low baseline numbers. And this trajectory or this slope makes ChatGPT the more likely candidate for broad global reach. Now, moving on to what people are doing with these tools. So, for Claude, 36% of the usage is computer or mathematics, which is mostly coding. But this share is falling slowly as education and science is growing. For ChatGPT, 78% of the usage is writing, guidance, or information lookup. Programming is only 4%. So it looks like the Claude is becoming the specialist tool for deep technical workflows, and ChatGPT is moving towards being a generalist tool for everyday communication and decisions. So it's like Claude is a scalpel for an engineer, but ChatGPT is a Swiss knife. So now moving to how they're working with it. So Anthropic defined two terms, automation versus augmentation, and OpenAI defines similar terms called doing versus asking. Claude's API work is 77% automation. So it's all about business efficiency, delegate tasks, get output. In ChatGPT, work usage is 49% asking for guidance, and only 40% is about doing tasks. And asking is growing faster and rated higher in quality. So surprisingly, high AUI countries lean towards augmentation. So professionals are using AI as a co-pilot. And lower AUI countries lean towards straight delegation. So companies are scaling scale with automation, and professionals are getting value from augmentation. Okay, so those are the usage and how they're being used, but what are the constraints? So what about price? API data from Anthropic shows that 10% decrease in cost leads to only 3% increase in usage. So it seems like the token price is not the bottleneck. Companies choose based on task value, not the cheapest option. So another constraint is input. Anthropic found out that 1% increase in input token length only gave 0.38% increase in output tokens. So just making prompts longer did not help. The real bottleneck is whether the businesses are actually providing the right context, clean, structured data that the models can work with. And contexts live in messy formats, PDFs, emails, scattered files, tacit employee knowledge. And these cannot be accessed easily. It looks like the adoption ceiling, at least for businesses, is not the GPU cost, but it's organizations' ability to centralize and structure the data. Now moving on to the concentration of value. Anthropic measured inequality in task usage using Gini coefficient. And they found out that API has a Gini coefficient of 0.84 and consumer usage has a Gini coefficient of 0.82. It means that a handful of tasks dominate and there is a large inequality. In fact, the bottom 80% of the task types make up only about 10 to 13% of total usage. So most of the value right now is clustering in very narrow set of activities, which I think are basically coding in case of Claude. And in ChatGPT, we see similar patterns but around different tasks. GPT data shows a similar pattern. Around 40% of all work-related usage is writing, and for managers, it's more than half. And most of it is not about generating new tasks or new text. 2/3 is editing, summarizing, or translating what people already wrote. So it looks like AI is not eating intelligence wholesale, but it's compressing the routine and giving higher leverage to people who have context. So bottom is compressed, but top is amplified. So here we are. Adoption is exploding, but uneven. Claude's data says divergence, but ChatGPT hints at convergence. Cost is not a bottleneck, but context is. Automation is providing scale, but augmentation is providing value. And the value is clustered around communication and judgment.